morning. It is 22 minutes after 7 o'clock. And joining us in studio this morning, actually all the way from the fourth floor up here, Matt Bristol with Bristol Law Office, joining us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Doing good. How was your weekend?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Wet, like everybody else's.
Sounds like you got a little cold something going on.
I'm on the back end. Yeah, I was dealing with a cold last week. And yeah, it's pretty much, I just got a little phlegm going on in the throat area. But yeah, just it's going around the cold. I got that still too.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, I'm on the back end. It's kind of lingering right at the phlegm in there. I get to clear out my throat. So
yeah, it'll go away sooner or later.
Yeah, eventually. If not, this will be the new saltier, sexier version of me. So for folks not familiar, Matt Bristol joins us once a month and gives sage legal advice, talking most of it's generally in the worlds of your family planning, making sure your ducks are in a row for future financial or family plans. So basically setting it up so whatever you want to do, making sure you legal wise set the table so you can navigate a lot of that type of stuff easier. Things like will planning, estate planning. If you're a business, starting a small business, what types of things you can do and things you should not do or cannot do, and things like that. That's where we spend a lot of our focus on.
Yep. We talk about all sorts of fun stuff. It's the second Monday of each month.
Yeah.
And here we are, the second Monday.
It is.
It's Columbus Day or
Indigenous Peoples Day or something, whatever you want to call it. It is that day. Main is that you probably won't get any mail and the banks are closed, but everything else will be open.
So the people who lost the war day, I guess.
Yeah.
So I've got two cases going on, Mike. I swear, we talk about this stuff on a regular basis, and some people just don't listen. I don't know what the scoop is.
Say, listen to the show because save you a bunch of money.
Save a bunch.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's a second marriage situation, older couple.
Okay.
They've been married like 20 years.
Okay.
Now, sometimes we see they've just been together 20 years, but not married. That happens too.
Sure.
So let's say it's the husband has the house. He owned it pre-marriage. They've been together 20 years, but he's got kids of a previous marriage. They're now adult children.
Mm-hmm.
And he passes without a will.
Oh, no.
No will, no estate planning, no nothing.
Wow, that could get ugly.
It gets ugly real quick.
Yeah.
You have the kids, barge in the house, and I want my dad's stuff.
Sure. And I'm sure the kids with the first wife feel a little more entitled than the second round of kids.
Well, even if there's no kids from the second round, they still, the
spouse
it's their dad, and they've known their whole lives. And there's probably nothing in that house that's more than 20 years old anyway, but they want their dad's stuff.
Yeah.
And
so the wife doesn't deserve it.
That's part of it. And then it's, his dad's sole and separate house. It's a sole and separate property. He had it pre-marriage. So the kids are entitled to 3/4 of the house.
Wow.
And 1/4 goes to the surviving spouse. So did dad really intend to leave his wife of 20 years with just 1/4 of a house?
I would hope not, but that's what he did.
That's what he did.
Yeah.
When you don't have a will, the state has a plan for you.
And I'm assuming the families weren't that close to begin with. And
usually not.
So they're not willing to work it out on their own, I'm taking it. They're going to want theirs and that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. It gets ugly quick. And, the house is worth $1 billion, and so you have to pay us 3/4 of $1 billion.
So that's what it is. There's people are looking for a payday here. It's not more than dad had a little bit. Dad had enough for some of these, might change the lives of some of these family members kind of thing.
Well, Dad,
financially anyway.
Well, most folks, they don't have a whole lot anyway.
Yeah.
Just the average Joe doesn't have a whole lot.
It sounds like this one's got some more assets in the estate than atypically or something like that.
Nobody's thinking straight.
Yeah.
The adult children just lost a parent, and the surviving spouse just lost their spouse, and there's a lot of emotions going on, and So sometimes it kind of depends on the age of the adult children.
Mm-hmm.
Kids in their 20s, they're not as uh, money grubby, let's say, as some maybe adult children in their 50s
Sure.
who didn't save anything for retirement.
Right. They're thinking, oh, here's our safety net for not
yeah,
having a nest egg here.
That's right.
Yeah.
We didn't save our own nest egg, so we need that inheritance from dad. And so the older people get, the more they tend to cling to that money stuff.
So we got probably a scenario there.
A real scenario. And then just say man and woman just lived together, but weren't actually married. Well, if there's no marriage, there's no community property, there's no legal claim to anything at all.
It's very surprising that someone with that many assets didn't have a will with that many family members to bequeath to. You know what I mean? It just does. That seems like usually someone who has that much in terms of assets and things generally got their head screwed on pretty good, and they plan for things like this. But
well,
I mean, you never say never, but it's just surprising to me that
a lot
that
of
didn't
people
happen.
are old school.
Yeah.
And old school is, you don't talk about it because if you do, it's going to happen.
Right.
So if you talk about dying, then you're going to die. So let's not talk about it. Let's not talk about wills, and let's not talk about transfer on death deeds, powers of attorney. It's, oh my gosh.
But you're doing
what
a
mess.
disservice to your family by not doing it, because even if you think your family's the most loving, agreeable, never, you know what I mean, never disagree on anything, things are different when it comes to money and things like that, and it changes people. And
It does.
And I hope to God you're right, but I'm going to bet that 9 times out of 10 you're wrong. Something's going to change, or something's going to cause a strife or cause some kind of wedge in the family, and it's too easy to avoid that by just getting the will. That way you set the terms that, like it. They might be mad at you, but at least everything's lined up. There's no room for interpretation.
Yeah. I mean, so husbands out there, if you're in your second marriage, is your intent really that your surviving spouse, your widow, now spend tens of thousands of dollars trying to straighten stuff out where you could have just fixed it real easy?
Yeah.
Is that really your intent, for her to blow all that money in court? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I know some people are like, oh, I just wash my hands of it, let them fight it out and all. I guess if that's your mindset, but at the end of the day, most people aren't like that. They want, when they're gone, they want their family to have to live comfortably, to not want for anything, and to be able to live at least the lifestyle that they were living with you on the earth with them. And unfortunately, humans are humans.
Yep.
And opportunity changes mindset of people sometimes, and that's just what happens.
Yep. I did have a widow call me, and her husband had an account, savings account, and he never really shared very much information about it with her, for whatever reason. But he had named his adult son as payable on death for the account.
Okay.
And so that's one way of estate planning, is you have beneficiaries named on your bank account. So at least, husband had taken care of that much. But again, the surviving widow, it's like, well, I could have used that money too. And she was wondering if she had a claim to the money. And I said, well, I don't know. What was the source of the deposits in the account? And she says, well, it was a Social Security check. I said, well, Social Security is sole and separate property.
Mm-hmm.
And so he can leave it to anybody he wants. And even when you're married, you don't have a claim to it.
And so what she assumed she was getting, she isn't.
Well, I don't know if she thought she was, but at least he had taken care of that account, and it went where he wanted.
Gotcha.
He wanted his child of a previous marriage to have something when he passed, and he accomplished that.
So the intent was probably for his kids to get that stuff. And, and for his current wife to get the house and the
house and the rest
things
of
that
the stuff.
they're living and using right at that particular time. But because kids are kids, and kids, no will, and there's like, well, no, that was my dad's, therefore it's mine. And that's unfortunate. And I'm going to guess the adult kids probably didn't have the best relationship with the second wife.
With the stepmom, no,
Yeah.
no.
So that doesn't help matters.
Oh, and the stepkids are saying, well, we want dad's this and we want dad's that. And it's like, okay, well, since none of his clothes are older than 20 years, it's like not yours.
Right.
And none of his garage tools are, more than 20 years old. So they're not yours. And so exactly what claim do you think you have?
Yeah.
So,
And now, was the second wife an actual wife? Were they married, or were they just
Yes.
living together? And so, really, a lot of the asses they have together, the kids can't touch, right?
anything acquired after the date of marriage belongs to the surviving spouse.
So I'm assuming
community
the house
property.
was just in his name and was acquired before the marriage.
Acquired pre and was paid off before the marriage, actually.
So she was just living there. So
Yeah. So
that is a slippery slope.
Yeah, so no community money went to pay down the mortgage, which might have made a community claim, but it was paid off before they got married. So little subtleties make a difference. Was it paid off? Was it not paid off?
Now, I'm assuming the house wasn't in her name at all, even though they were married.
Correct.
At no point was her name put on the deed of the property.
Correct.
Okay. And then I'm guessing in New Mexico, there's no common law.
No. So common law is short for English common law.
Gotcha.
And since we're a Spanish-based community property state, we have no English common law marriage.
Gotcha. Okay. So that I know some states have that, but we're not one of them. So
Not one of them.
that wouldn't fall under that kind of thing.
Predominantly back east, you see more common law marriages.
Isn't California one of those states that allows it? It seems that way.
They may have adopted it.
I just seem like a lot of celebrities talk about that for a reason. Or
and then
something.
palimony and all that. It's kind of, it's California, land of fruits and nuts.
Everything's
Everything's different
Everything's
there.
not quite right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they got some really weird stuff going on in California.
Yeah. So the real point and lesson in all of what we're telling you here is have a will to delineate where your assets go, regardless of how many assets you have.
I have a will for the house. We do what's called a transfer on death deed, which removes the house from probate. That's always very nice. You can name beneficiaries on bank accounts, savings, checking, retirement, life insurance. Name a beneficiary, not just one beneficiary, but 2 or 3 levels.
Okay.
And there's different ways you can word that.
Now, how often do you get in the weeds with the wills like you see in movies and TV where they're leaving you the jewelry and specific heirloom items? Is that commonplace, or is that more the exception than the rule?
All of our wills have a provision say I may attach a list of personal property items and the person who's going to get them.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's on all of our wills.
Okay.
And we just send it with them and say, fill it out and date it and change your mind as much as you want. As long as you sign and date, you're good. But I always recommend that they give away those items while they're still alive.
Gotcha.
And because that way they know Mike Winters is going to get X.
Sure. Well, and that's just it. I always wondered, what happens? The idea is you write a will out, and it's going to be a long time before you execute said will. Most people aren't thinking next week they're going to be executing this will, So my question is, what happens if, say, the said things get broken or missing over time? Like, I was going to leave them my blender, but the blender died. I mean, is that... what happens when those kind of things happen? Do you really have to do an act of Congress to change the will? It's where's my blender I was promised? Well, it broke in 1922.
Well, that's an invitation for disaster, actually. So, because I've had some people say, well, I want my son Mike, to have my Camaro because he's always wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, the problem with that is if you say I want Mike to have my 68 Camaro, what happens if you pass away not owning it? You sold it or something.
Can he go get it from whoever you gave it to
or
sold it to?
Demand the monetary equivalent.
Sure. Now you sue the estate to get whatever the value of that Camaro was.
Right, exactly.
Oh, man.
So when people tell me, I want my child to have my car,
sure.
Then I tell the Camaro, so we write down, if I own it when I die, Mike gets the 68 Camaro. And so that takes care of the
Okay.
Mike suing the estate for the
Gotcha.
monetary equivalent.
I was like,
of.
if it's still around, you can have it. Got it.
Or
Okay.
any car I may own at the time of my death.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we couch that for the what if there's a plan B happens.
Okay. I was just kind of curious about that because I'm sure there's certain items that are, family keepsakes and things, and then a fire happens or something, it gets destroyed, and it's like, then what? If you don't go and change your will, or someone on the hook for that when they come to execute said will? I mean, it's kind of
Well, that's why I recommend people give their stuff away while they're alive.
sure.
That way I know Mike ends up with the 68 Camaro because I handed him the keys.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you get to see people smile, you get to see the look on their face when they get whatever it is you're giving them. You get some immediate joy. Do it for Christmas, birthday kind of stuff. And that way you know your stuff ends up where you want it to end up.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And then you just hope the people you bequeath it to take care of it the way you would hope they take care of it.
Well, so I had a case where there was a second marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And these people were older. I mean, late 60s. Second marriage, and so everybody's got adult children, both the husband and wife. And so the wife comes to see me, and she's got some issues. And I say, well, what's the matter? She says, well, the husband's kids, and they're already making noise about what's going to happen to my mom's stuff. What's going to happen to my mom's stuff when Dad passes? They're already making noises.
Sure.
And I said, well, tell you what, you just have your husband start giving that stuff to the kids now.
Right.
Mom's dresser, mom's jewelry, mom's paintings, mom's silver, china, whatever it is.
The things you want to make sure stay with the people you want it to stay with.
Give it to the kids now so they can't complain about it later. That way everything in the house is, or most stuff in the house is new. It's yours, not the ex-wife's. And then if husband does pass away first, everything in the house is yours because you bought it brand new.
Makes sense.
So get rid of that stuff now.
Well, and to be honest, if it's stuff that's valuable to you, but all it's doing is sitting in a room in your house or sitting in your garage collecting dust, you might as well go ahead and let it go to the person you intend it to go to so they can start enjoying it and taking care of it. And to be honest, that's one less thing you're responsible for now.
Yep.
At that point, it's like, good. Now, what about the car? I don't got to worry about it. It's my son's now or my daughter's now. It's not mine to worry about.
Yep.
So
sometimes, prenuptial agreement helps keep things divided. Now there's no question the E-Trade account was something Dad had pre-marriage because there's a prenup. So that goes to whoever he goes to in the will.
gotcha.
Or there's, the 68 Camaro's in the prenup. So now there's no dispute who owned it pre-marriage and it's sole and separate property. So the prenups come in handy that way.
Okay.
Just so not so much between the husband and wife you're worried about, it's the next generation you're worried about.
Sure. Makes sense. And that's probably where, when we talk about these things, that's where it gets complicated when you're in essence, starting a new family, which is kind of, when you go through you've been married with someone for, a long time and have kids with them, and then you end up divorcing and then marrying someone else and in essence starting a new family here. And even if there's no kids in that next marriage, just like we said here, you're creating more dependents, more people that at the end of the day think they get a piece of the pie at the end. And if that's not worked out, beforehand, even if you think your family gets along and everybody loves everybody, and everyone's like, there's no way they would start a family feud over my stuff.
Yeah, they will.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Hold my beer and check this out. That's kind of what, people just get different when it turns out that they think they've got a chance at money or something of value.
Oh yeah.
And families get destroyed over dumb stuff like this. So please, for the sake of your family, for the sake of yourself, just go ahead and have that. Well, even if you don't think, if you've got any kind of an asset, if you own a house, if you own a car, if you own anything that's of value, then you've got something worth writing a will for, because someone's going to want it. Where's it going to go when you're gone?
Yep.
And you get to dictate where that, and if you don't, someone else does, and you probably won't be happy with the way it gets dictated.
Yeah. If you don't have an estate plan, the state has one for you, whether you like it or not, or whether your kids like it or not.
And the real, and we've talked about this in the past too. The thing is, once you have a will, it's not sign it and forget it. You know, as life moments happen, additions to the family, subtractions to the family, assets that you've added, assets that you've lost,
retirement,
retirement,
401k,
divorce,
IRAs,
remarriage, any of these milestone moments in your life, you need to reassess that will and make sure it meets your current life's needs.
Absolutely.
You know, because an outdated will is just as effective as no will. Because if it's talking about a bunch of assets you don't have anymore, or bequeathing to people that are no longer walking the earth, then it's not really very useful now, is it? So,
yep, got a problem there. So, you know, be aware, treat business like business. It's a business decision. You just got to treat it like a business and just get her done.
Yeah. It's one of those things, like you said earlier, no one wants to talk about or deal with death and things like that. But, you know, have that simple conversation. Do it young, you know, you do it, plan early with that. Especially if you got kids.
Yeah.
The moment you get kids, you better start thinking about a will and getting that will done.
And the will is not so much for assets for the small children, but who's going to raise those children?
What happens if you get in a car accident tomorrow and you die and there's no one to raise your kids?
Yep.
And you're like, I don't want so-and-so to raise them. I want so-and-so to raise them. Well, you lose that say, possibly, without that will.
Well, you do, because after that point, you're dead.
Yeah.
So you need a testamentary guardian of who's going to raise those kids. If there's assets for the children, then that's typically a different skill set. So you might have somebody raise the children who has good parenting skills, but then a different person actually handle the money who's got good financial skills.
Right. Yeah. Let the one who's good at setting up trusts and things handle the finances, and the one who's good with, raising kids, raise the kids.
Yeah, because the kids are going to be getting Social Security checks. So that'll take care of their day-to-day needs in theory, and the other assets can be left alone to grow.
And exactly. So, hopefully one day when that kid turns 18 is thinking about education after high school, they pretty much can write their own ticket because they've got a little nest egg there to go to college or go to trade school or start their own business or whatever they want to do with their next phase in life. So,
yeah, always got to think about the future, plan for it, be careful. If you don't have a roadmap, you're going to end up just anywhere on
it. This is true.
Maybe somewhere you don't want to be.
Yeah, and it's I know it's not fun to think about, and it's not something that people are itching and clamoring to do, but you will save yourself so much family stress and headaches and life's things that you think are simple in life get complicated because of things like this. This is the type of things. We're supposed to be celebrating with your family the good moments in life, the joy, and when you do have the sad moments, you're supposed to use those moments to mourn and to grieve the loss. Not, all right, what are we gonna do with this car? What are we gonna do with this house?
The fight starts.
Because that's just ugly.
Yes, and in another scenario of where there's a second marriage and the wife does have assets. Say, wife inherited assets from her parents. And what if husband goes into a nursing home? Well, Medicaid is going to tell a wife to spend that money down unless she can have some paper trail that it's sole and separate property.
Yeah.
If there's no paper trail, they're going to make her spend that money down. Or even if it's a 20-year marriage and the husband and wife, acquire 401ks, IRAs, those are considered spendable assets for Medicaid. And now you're going to be spending all of your retirement money on the spouse in the nursing home. And
paying for long-term care.
And who's going to take care of you? So you can do a post-nuptial agreement. Or a New Mexico husband and wife can enter into contracts that says that's Mike's sole and separate property, and this is Kim's sole and separate property.
Sure. So you protect assets so you don't put your spouse in the poorhouse because you've got to pay for your assisted living or hospice or whatever it is you need.
So at least when you leave a widow or widower, they still have some assets to retire on, to live on, instead of just a $1,200 Social Security check.
Yeah. Yeah, because the rest got bled dry paying for,
nursing
homes and long-term care and hospice and all that.
Yep. So little things like that, folks. Let's kind of think ahead and plan for that kind of stuff.
And unfortunately, the time that most people end up starting thinking about this stuff is that time where the relative is needing hospice or needing long-term care. And to be honest, that's the last thing on your mind is how am I going to pay for it? How am I? You're just, yeah, you can focus on that transition in life with your loved one, and that it's rough enough going through that as it is. Then you worry about, well, how many days before they kick us out of here? You know.
Oh yeah, it's scary stuff.
It is. It is. So, please, I know it's not fun. I know it's not sexy, but plan ahead on this. And what's an ounce of planning prevents a pound of pain or something later. I don't remember the actual slogan, but it's something like that.
An ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure.
There you go. There it is. Exactly. It is absolutely true. It is what it is. So
you spend $500,000 on prevention and the cure. If you don't do it, then it could cost tens of thousands.
Absolutely. And it's always the alternative. That's what you think about. And it's not human nature to just say, all right, what's the worst case scenario of everything and plan for it. But if you think that way, then your chances are you're probably going to be pretty good with you're going to be prepared for whatever hurdle or obstacle or caveat gets thrown in your path.
Well, it's an interesting observation because when I was in Scouts, we were both Scouts. Mike and I are both Scouts. In junior high and high school, this older scout taught us rock climbing, rappelling, and he bought a book on rock climbing accidents. Things not to do. And so what we learned was, well, not only what are the odds of something occurring, a bad thing occurring, but what's the downside to that? Mm-hmm. And so one of the stories was these guys are climbing, big rock face, and there's a rock ledge, but there's a 3-foot gap. And on one side of the gap, there's all sorts of ropes you could tie into for safety. On the other side of the gap, there are ropes you could tie into for safety, but there's no one rope going over the gap.
Gotcha.
So he had this mountain climber says, well, what are the odds I can't step 3 feet and, unhook here, step 3 feet, rehook in for safety? What are the odds I can't make that?
Sure.
Well, he didn't make it. And the downside was 1,000-foot fall.
Oof.
So it's not just, there's a 1 in 1,000 chance I can't make 3 feet.
Right.
But the odds are, and if you don't, what's the downside?
Sure.
What's the 100% certainty of death?
Yeah.
So we did look at what is the worst case scenario.
Sure.
And what is the result of that
risk
scenario.
Risk versus reward.
Yeah. So I learned to think that. That's interesting. Yeah.
It is. And that's just it too. And then, because then you can get into, if you really want to get into the weeds, you're like, okay, well, what's the weather today? Is it rainy? Is it dry? And that impacts the percentages of failure, success. Wet rocks are going to be slippery and more dangerous than dry ones. And so that 3 feet is much more dangerous with wet rocks than it is. So, but yeah, that's the kind of thing you do. And you assess everything like that, even if you're not doing it physically, that's just human nature. How many times do you go and say you're in Walmart and you're walking through Walmart and you say, oh, look at this cup. Should I buy it? And then you start looking at, well, the cup is large. That's what and then you start looking, well, do I want to buy it? Well, it's purple. I don't like that color. So, you know what I mean? But every single decision you make, this is what you're going through and doing that kind of, whether you realize it or not. And that's, treat everything in life that way. It's, make those,
make good decisions. Think about it. Make good decisions.
But weigh the pros and cons on everything. And odds are, if you do that, you'll end up making the right decision 9 times out of 10. And when it comes to your legal side, family planning, legal planning, financial planning, all of that stuff, it's not rocket science. It's really just being smart and just saying, okay, if I do decision X, what's the good things that come from that? What's the potential bad things that come from that? And then if you weigh every decision that way and you look at, and odds are you're probably going to make the right decision 9 times out of 10 because you sat and thought and did some critical thinking on it.
Yes. And even when you do nothing, you have made a decision, and that decision will have consequences.
Sure.
So just every decision has a consequence, even if it's a decision to, I'm going to put this off.
Yeah. And that's
not a good one.
But that's, at the end of the day, when we talk lawyers and legalities and what's right, what's wrong, and that's interpreting the law and saying, okay, well, this is what it says. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Did you do that? Did you not do that? And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, there's rules out there that your state will have to go by, whether you're aware of those rules or not. And that's a dangerous game to play of, I'm going to just keep myself ignorant of what's going to happen.
That's why it's probably a pretty good idea when every time you go to a life milestone moment like this, if you're getting a will, if you're having things, sit down and talk with an attorney. Talk with them about, any kind of thing. Even if you're making a major purchase, probably not a bad idea sometimes to pass along with a guy like Matt and saying, "Hey, Matt, buying a house here. What do I need to update? What do I need to do? Okay, well, let's take a look at your will here. Let's take a look at your assets. All right, now you got kids here. How do you want to divide that up with them?" And that's the kind of, anytime this stuff goes on, you need to make that conversation happen. So.
Yeah, so I have that conversation a lot with, say, bankruptcy clients. They go through the bankruptcy and they say, well, at some point we're going to want to buy a house. What do we do to get there? And so I tell them, well, you want to do this, you want to do this, you want to do this. I said, when you talk to the mortgage lender and they say, well, this is your monthly payment, be careful because that could just be principal and interest. Your taxes and insurance have to factor into that.
Yeah.
And so you need to ask them how much those are going to be. And then are you going to get a 15-year mortgage, 30-year mortgage? And there's an easy way to pay off a 30-year mortgage early without too much penalty, but then there's bad ways to pay it off early. And so I counsel young couples or middle-aged couples on, different things to think about.
Absolutely.
And of course, I'm not telling people what to do, but have you thought about, I had a bankruptcy client. He was about to pay off the car in about 10 months. And I said, what are you going to do with the car payment? He says, what do you mean? I said, well, someday you're going to need a car payment, right?
Yeah.
And well, yeah. So you take your $600 a month car payment you got now and you just put it in savings. You keep that expense in your budget as an expense, but it goes to savings. And then in the future, when you need a new car, you move that expense back into your monthly budget, and that's the new car payment. Now you don't have to scramble to find the money for a car payment.
Gotcha.
And he's like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. That's why I'm here.
That's what I do.
That's what I do.
So, please, I just saw the time. We're running short on it here, but before we give Matt's fact or fiction here, if you do need some sage legal advice here, you're listening to us and you're saying, you know what, time to start putting that will together, or you know what, I got a will, but it's been about 10 years since I've looked at this thing. Maybe it's time for an update and for a reassessment here.
Could be. And
Yeah.
but if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
So let me take a look. And if it doesn't need changing, we won't change it.
And that's the thing. Matt's going to be honest and upfront with you. If he's like, dude, this is a 5-minute fix, take care of it, and you're done, then he'll tell you that and be gone with it. But you go to get. But if it does require more, okay, no, you need to sit and make it a full appointment. We need to talk and let's start breaking this down and fixing it. Then Matt will be happy to do that for you.
There you
too.
go.
So.
BristolOffice.com. Look us up, or 625-5284. Give us a call.
Absolutely. All right. You want to do a little fact or fiction for us here?
Well, I noticed driving today that coming here that there was a full moon. Did you see it?
I did notice it.
Beautiful. Yeah.
First, I was like, man, it's dark. It's already getting dark this early. And then I noticed, oh, look, a full moon.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
So, when crazy things happen or you get a bunch of crazy people in the office and people say, wow, there must be a full moon out there, right? So, of course, the Latin word for moon is...
Something lunar?
Lunar.
Okay.
That's why crazy people are called lunatics.
Okay.
Because it's the full moon.
Makes sense.
The moon makes people crazy.
That's right. It's all those werewolves out there.
And the werewolves. Yes. Because it's that time of year.
'Tis the season.
'Tis the season.
So,
thank you, Mike. I enjoyed it so much.
As always, appreciate the visit. We appreciate the great information. Again, BristolLawOffice.com. Schedule an appointment with Matt to sit down and talk with your legal issues. Of course, you deal with family law to financial, all that stuff.
Business also.
Business as well.
A little bit of everything.
So if you need help with LLCs or wills or anything in between, Matt can help with all that kind
Give
of
us
stuff.
a call.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. We'll see you next month.
Take it easy.
Stay warm. We're getting cooler now. It's gonna get to the point where it's stay warm.
I love it. I see your windows open. I really like the fresh air.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. This is one of those few times a year I can leave it open all day. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, it is 7:57.